The world can be a dangerous place for a bear cub. So when a little one needs a second chance, Appalachian Bear Rescue answers the call. Nestled into the Great Smoky Mountains, ABR offers the gold standard in medical care, diet, and hands-off husbandry so that orphaned or injured cubs can return to Appalachia healthy, strong, and wild. Thanks to the generous support of our donors and friends, Appalachian Bear Rescue's state-of-the-art rehabilitation facilities are among the best in the world. Come join Executive Director Greg and Lead Curator Katrina as we tour the dozens of acres it takes to successfully rehabilitate the heart of the Smokies.
Hi, so we're here in the Cub Nursery. This is one of our outbuildings. It's a standalone structure for keeping cubs who should be in their dens. You can see here we have it set up with one of these cages, kind of as a little demo of what we would have when a cub is in here. So we try and keep it comfortable, we try and keep it cozy, but most importantly in this room, we want to keep it dark, and that's why we have these curtain structures here so we can blind this area, and we have cameras in the ceilings that we can monitor these cubs without being in here. We want to disturb them as little as possible, and we want to just come in here to feed and clean and get out of here and leave them alone, let them do their thing. All right, here we are in the Red Roof Recovery Center. This is our specially designed building for taking care of injured or sick bears in a quarantine situation. We have two small indoor rooms here that are joined by a little guillotine door pass-through, also joined with guillotine door pass-throughs to an outdoor room that's fenced in, so a bear can have 3 rooms here. We can isolate them so that we can feed and clean without being in there with them, and we can also keep them away from other bears. We additionally have some drop-down ceilings. You can see in this room here, we have ceilings that we've built specifically to prevent bears' yearlings with injuries from standing up, to stop it from putting all its weight on an injured hind leg.
This is Hartley House, built in 2019. It's named after the bear Hartley from Hartley, Kentucky, and is also generously donated by all of our wonderful friends at Appalachian Bear Rescue. So come on in. So Hartley House is awesome because it provides a lot of flexibility and options for us curators as we're taking care of bear cubs. Our first room here, we typically will put a bear cub that's a little bit younger, so a graduation from nursery or even recovery center, so they get a little bit of a bigger space here. With the shift gates, it makes it really easy for us to keep our care hands off. So the bears can hear us, they probably can smell us however, a bear will never see us give them food because they'll be in one room. We'll clean another room, and then once we've got that room cleaned, we'll let them back in there. So when bear cubs get a little bit older, we actually will move in some bigger climbing options. We don't teach them how to climb, they already know how to do that. However, they get to practice their skills in Hartley House as well before they go outside. When we're really trying to keep a bear or a couple of bears entertained indoors, sometimes it can be difficult. And so that's when we'll really go all out and we'll put in pools and swings and other enrichment items and really make them use their nose and their brain to get their food during the day.
So one of the great things about the Hartley House is we have the whole entire space HVAC'd and insulated. We also have a lot of natural light able to come in here through these transom windows. Additionally, we have power, we got water, and we have a full supply of enrichment items here. These are all brand new items for the bears to enrich their experience in here, to reduce the stress and help them use their brains and their tools and make sure that they're learning all the skills they need to learn. We have a refrigerator right here for storing food, so we can come down here and prepare special food for bears that are on special diets, be that bear milk replacer or fruit and yogurt and all kinds of other things to mix with medication for them. We're really happy to have this space because it allows us to offer an experience and care at a level that many other places are not able to do, and that's all thanks to you guys and your generous donations.
So one of the other great features of Hartley House is that we have these doors that go to the outside to the acclimation pens, and then even from there it goes to a wild enclosure. So we can keep it as hands-off as possible. Bears will move from one room to the other, and then once they graduate from being inside, they can be half inside, half outside, and then eventually all the way outside.
Here we are in Wild Enclosure 1. I'm standing next to the original acclimation pens. Wild Enclosure 1 and Wild Enclosure 2 both have acclimation pens like this from 30 years ago, which was when these enclosures were built. This was all built by hand with a lot of volunteer work and labor from folks from the National Park Service, as well as all the early ABR board members and volunteers and employees. You can see here we've got some bear dens for bears to stay in the winter, provide some shelter, and we also have an abundance of climbing structures. We do a lot to maintain the vegetation in here because it does get a lot of use with bears over 30 years. We have fencing that's 9-gauge chain link. We've got 6 strands of hot electric fence all around the enclosure, and 2 more strands of hot electric wire on the upper sections of the fencing. In addition to that, we have this black plastic right here. This black plastic is our insurance policy. If a bear ever were to get past the electric fencing wires and try and climb the fencing, they cannot climb that black plastic, and that's in all of our enclosures. We recently rebuilt all these climbing structures. Originally they were built onto the trees in here, but this past year we put in brand new pillars and all new wood and framing. This is all cypress, so it should all last a very long time. We want to make sure that we can keep these trees healthy and alive in here, and less climbing on the trees, less structures on the trees helps those trees survive longer. We're going through the perimeter here. Between enclosures 1 and 2 and enclosures 5 and 6, we've got our drain system here that we're driving right past that helps prevent runoff from enclosures 1 and 2 from going into enclosures 5 and 6. This corridor is just big enough for us to be able to drive around, which is really good for maintenance and for curators going through the daily chores. Right ahead of us here, we're going to make a left turn and we're going to go down the side of enclosure 5 and 6. And on the other side, we have enclosures 3 and 4 just adjacent to us to our right. So everything is connected through the perimeters of our enclosures, which makes it more secure and also makes it easier for curators to do multiple sets of chores in the day from inside the perimeter without having to open too many gates. You'll see up ahead of us, coming to our observation tower that we've set up for enclosures 5 and 6. We'll go up there and take a look and give you a little bird's eye view of everything. So we're in our overlook tower of enclosure 5 and enclosure 6 right here. These are our newest and our largest enclosures. Combined, they are well over an acre. And as you look down below at enclosure 5, it looks quite huge, and that's because it incorporates the bottom of a drainage here. So we have a south-facing aspect, we have a north-facing aspect. We've got a lot of sun and mixed forest environment here in both of these enclosures. We really like that we've got a big buffer from the chain link fence to our first trees, because we have to wrap trees that are within 15 feet of the fencing to stop bears from being able to climb them. So we made sure to eliminate trees within that 15-foot perimeter, and that way it's safer for our fences, safer for our bears, and it's less maintenance on us. All right, so we're inside of enclosure 6 right now. This is conjoined to enclosure 5. There's 2 guillotine doors in the divider that join enclosures 5 and 6. They both have their own standalone acclimation pens. And like I said, we're in this big buffer space here between the fence and our first trees. This is one of our oak saplings that we've planted here. We're hoping that we've got plenty of sun, plenty of room in the canopy for these oak saplings to grow into big trees one day. And hopefully 30, 40 years from now, they're gonna produce acorns that'll feed the cubs in here in the fall. So here we have our electric fencing set up inside of enclosure 6. This is a newer setup than our other enclosures, but what we have here is 6 all hot electric poly ropes, and these ropes are actually stronger than the galvanized wire that's in the other enclosures. This is an 1,800-pound breaking strength, and it has an incredibly high conductivity, better than that of the galvanized steel. So the current can travel better through this material, and it also is hotter shock to the bear. And the hotter the shock is, the less the bears are ever going to test it again. Above the electric, we have our trusty plastic. This goes from 4 foot to 8 foot high. And above that, we have our angled chain link with 2 more strands of hot electric poly rope on top of that. In addition, underground here, the chain link does go a foot deep and extends 3 feet underground to the inside of the enclosure. So there's not a lot of critters that could get out of here if they tried. I don't want to put a tiger in here anytime soon, but I think it would even have a hard time. Alright, so we're here at enclosures 3 and 4. They have a separate entrance into them. On the opposite side of the property is enclosures 1 and 2. We have both entrances to 3 and 4 right adjacent to each other with an observation tower down the middle that allows us to look into both enclosures from the divider fence. Enclosure 4 has the cub house attached to it, which also attaches to the enclosure 4 acclimation pen. Enclosure 3 has its own acclimation pen because, like I said, we need acclimation pens on every enclosure to be able to safely introduce bears and capture bears back out of enclosures. Alright, so we're inside the cub house now. This is more or less a miniature version of the Hartley house. It was actually built before the Hartley house was built, and over the years it was added on to and modified. We did have some Townsend artists paint a little mural in here to try and make it look a little bit more woodsy. We do have the walls covered in plastic and the concrete treated. That all helps us clean it better and also stops the cubs from trying to climb the cinder block walls in here. Just like the Hartley house, all of these rooms have their own individual camera feed that we can watch 24/7 and also watch recordings of. And there's also a sliding door between both of these rooms in the cub house that allows us to shift cubs from one side to the other. Again, it is a good bit smaller than the Hartley house, but we also have the ability to shift a cub from one of these rooms to the other room and then into the outdoor acclimation pen that adjoins this and then into enclosure 4. All of our acclimation pens have cameras in them so we can monitor the bears remotely. We like to provide climbing structures in the acclimation pens, help them get off the concrete. The reason we have concrete in the acclimation pens is because it's much easier to clean. When bears are in here, it's usually no longer than 24 to 48 hours tops that they're actually confined to just one acclimation pen. And that's for them just to meet the other bears that are outside in the enclosure before they're released out there to interact with them fully. More fully, John. Yep. We're up here in enclosures 3 and 4's observation tower. We have a pan tilt zoom camera on both sides of this tower so we can observe from up here. Enclosures 3 and 4 are a little bit more grown up than enclosures 1 and 2. We actually have done some significant vegetation thinning in here to get some more sunlight in the area, and we're seeing a lot of this vegetation growing up really well. Some of these trees finally getting some more sun in their canopies. These enclosures are just right at 1 acre when they're combined. They both have pools like all the enclosures and climbing structures in here. We can freely move bears back and forth between these enclosures with a guillotine door that's just down at the end of this divider fence below me. You know, if I had a fort like this when I was a kid, I would have been out here all day. This is a paradise.
So here we have our release building. Not every bear comes in through our nursery, but every bear comes here before they leave. This is where, we take any final measurements, final weights. We figure out how much a bear has grown while they've been in our care. And then, they'll also get their ear tags from the state or the national park, depending on where they're headed back out to be released. So this is kind of our final goodbye to our bears. We do any last checkups on things that they came in with. If they had a broken leg, we make sure that everything is healed properly and things like that. But basically, this is the last stop when they're here in our care, and an ABR bear then goes back to being a wild bear.
I want to thank you guys for joining us for this virtual tour. We hope we showed you guys everything that you've been looking for. Thank you so much for your support that's made all this possible, and we look forward to sharing more with you guys soon.
Thanks, everybody.